The backlog is real. Whether you're playing on Nintendo, Xbox, PlayStation, or Steam. And mine has gotten out of hand. I have no self-control, and when I see a deal, I have to grab it. Come with me as I finally tackle my backlog, gaining control one game at a time. I absolutely love this game. Elden Ring sat on my backlog for a year until a friend of mine started to play it when we'd hang out, and it got me interested in it all over again. I tried and failed so many times to play any Souls-Bourne games. I knew about the series over the years, from Demon Souls to Dark Souls, and how infamous they became for their intense difficulty and obstacles to overcome. I'll admit that I was put off in the beginning by the get good mentality. The first FromSoft game that caught my eye was Bloodborne. Growing up, some of my favorite games were Devil May Cry and the Resident Evil series, specifically Resident Evil 4, which just means I love gothic horror. So, of course, I bought the game day one and struggled until I beat the first boss I encountered. Which boss, you ask? Surely you got to Father Gascoigne, the first main boss. Hell no. I beat the Cleric Beast after what felt like a million runs and never touched the game again. I had a similar experience with Elden Ring in the beginning. I got through the intro and the tutorial, and then I saw the big golden knight, and I was just like, yep, nah, I'm good, and set it down for a year with no real intentions of picking it back up. Okay, I got a little bit further than that, but not really by much. But when I started to watch my friend, who had never played a Souls-like game, get really interested in it and progress, is when it started to click for me. I finally understood that the difficulty of these games isn't there just for the sake of being difficult. It's there so you push yourself and overcome the obstacles ahead of you, and feel the sense of accomplishment as you finally beat a tough boss that has killed you over a dozen times. Well, most of the time. Sometimes they're cheap as hell, and it gets annoying. You play as a tarnished warrior who has received the guidance of grace and seemingly brought back to life with one goal: obtain the Elden Ring and the power it offers and become the Elden Lord. And that's pretty much it. Once you are thrusted into the world, you are told to follow the guidance of grace and to claim a great rune from one of the many rune bearers. What is the Elden Ring and who is the Elden Lord? Well, you'll have to figure that out as you play the game. You'll be familiar with this game's style of storytelling if you've ever played one of FromSoft's games before. They favor a minimal approach, letting the player discover items and talk to NPCs and piece together what they can by making educated guesses based off of the environment. And if the stories in these games weren't like that, then some people would be out of a job, and we don't want that. I think what got everybody else excited about this game, other than the questionable involvement of George R.R. Martin.
The game is called the Elden Ring, and it's a sequel to a video game that came out a few years ago called Dark Souls.
What? Is the same thing that made me a little apprehensive of the game. It was going to be an open world, which shouldn't have come as such a surprise since what game these days isn't an open world game. But what gets to me most about open world games is the formulaic approach to a lot of them. From the overbearing UI design to the copy and pasted side quests that just serve to pad the game. But most of all, they always tend to lead you by the hand and tell you where to go and what to do before you can figure it out on your own.
Looks like you stopped the water flow in that trough. There's a brazier to the left of the chest. Maybe you can light it? There should be a way to turn the wheel.
This game is a breath of fresh air, no pun intended. This game doesn't mess around, and that's one of the reasons I kept coming back once I got into it. It tells you just enough on how to play the game and then throws you into the world. You can go and do whatever you want. I know people say this all the time, but it's like Breath of the Wild in that regard. It's an unguided exploration experience with as little and as much to do as the player wants. Honestly, just getting tossed into an open world and being told, that's where you need to go, figure out how to get there, is probably my favorite way to experience an open world. Though this approach has led to some pretty hot takes on the game, with even some developers criticizing the design and experience of Elden Ring and subsequently getting roasted online over it.
Elden Ring scored a 97 Metacritic is proof that reviewers don't give a flaming poop about game user experience. My life is a lie. Nor PC graphics, stability, and performance apparently. Nor quest design really. Now what these people are really saying is, I'm jealous of From Software's success because it overshadows my own.
But I think I, like many others, have gotten tired of the current open world formula. And don't get me wrong, I'm not hating on Horizon and Zero Dawn or God of War. In fact, Ragnarok is one of my favorite God of War games. Well, maybe I'm hating a little bit on Assassin's Creed, but let's be honest, they deserve it. It just gets boring after a while, and when I play a game, I like to figure things out on my own before, looking it up online.
You're nearly done. Hurry cheating, looking them up on the internet.
No, shut up.
With the open world here, I was always excited to go somewhere, anywhere in the game, and see if there was anything I would missed or what new things I could potentially find. And Elden Ring does not disappoint. This game is packed with stuff all over the place, from base camps to small catacomb dungeons and NPCs with quests that you can take or leave as you please. The magic of this game's originality does somewhat fall apart if you want to see everything the game has to offer, though. If you are dead set on coming over the game from one edge of the world to another, you will see a lot of copy and pasting. From some dungeon designs to bosses that get reused, and then you have to fight two of them at the same time, it gets old pretty fast. But you know what? That's okay. From what I've read online, Miyazaki designed the game this way on purpose so that no matter what, everyone who plays this game doesn't miss anything by not finding that one specific cave and that one specific edge of the map, while also rewarding the curious adventurer for going off the beaten path. For me though, the world that was built kept me amazed and visually interested in the game. But how did it do mechanically? If I could describe the gameplay in one word, it would be focused. Everything is tight and has a purpose, from wandering around on foot or platforming on your mighty horse steed thing, Torrent. You can even sneak around what seems to be enemies with some of the worst peripheral vision on the planet. But joking aside, I was happy with how everything controlled and felt. The combat is a ton of fun, which if it wasn't, I wouldn't be talking about it right now. The game does a great job in letting you know exactly what you have at your disposal and how it all works. For the majority of my playthrough, I stuck with the samurai build without really knowing that the bleed effect of the weapons that you have are probably some of the best in the game. But whenever I hit a wall, I did switch it up to some big smackers that were so cool to see and use. Honestly, one of the best parts about these games to me is the amount of unique armor and weapons you can find and upgrade. One of the things I discovered pretty late in my playthrough was that there were more whetstones you could find and use to add extra damage attributes to your weapons. One of the things I love the most about the game is also my biggest critique of the game. It doesn't tell you much, just enough to get going. It does use level design to lead you to certain key items that are crucial to your progression, like the whetstones and the summoning bells. But there were some things that I just happened upon later in the game that had me like, wow, this would have been awesome to have 15 hours ago. The main thing I'm thinking of is the whetstone you get in Radahn's castle after the festival. And this is probably on me, but after I beat Radahn, which is probably one of the coolest boss fights in the game, I didn't feel the need to go back and explore his castle. It actually didn't click with me that after the festival was over, all of those locked doors in the courtyard would be open, which is totally my fault for being dumb, but you could also talk about the crafting kit. Sure, it's purchasable by the very first merchant you meet in the game, but less attentive players could totally miss it. Is this a critique of the game or just dumb players like myself? Let's talk about the bosses in the game. I've heard from folks that have played multiple FromSoft games that Elden Ring has some of the best boss designs in their history, which just shows you the dedication from the devs that are constantly paying attention to what works and improving on what doesn't, because oh my god, are there bosses in this game. Even if you are strictly talking about the main bosses in the game, which give you great runes, or gauge it by which bosses give you a trophy when you beat them, there is no way around it. There are a ton of bosses in this game. And for the most part, they are what people come to see. For the most part.
Fuck this. Did you see this? Look at this. Mangekyo Sharingan.
I can safely say that if you're like me and you hog games on your backlog for that one day when you get around to it, I highly recommend you dust off Elden Ring if you haven't already. It seems to be the best beginner experience for people who want to get into the Souls-Bourne games, since you can just turn around and mess about until you get strong enough to fight the next big boss you get stuck on, and has a gorgeous, haunting world and art style that will keep you engaged for hours on end. I didn't want to even leave this game. When I got to the end of the game, I didn't even want to stop playing. I actually went back and platinumed the game. This is the second game I've ever platinumed, and that's mainly because I just didn't want to leave the world. The first platinum I ever got on PlayStation was a complete accident. It was the first Jak and Daxter game, and I just collected all the stuff on my first playthrough and got it randomly when I beat the game. This time it was a fully premeditated, I'm gonna beat this game and I'm gonna platinum this game because I just, after 130 hours, I want more. So I'm really excited for that, and I'm excited to see the DLC when it comes out, hopefully soon. Definitely probably not until next year, but any excuse to visit the lands between again, I'll take. Don't take my word for it though. I think the entire gaming community seems to feel the same.
I think I want to nominate this award to my Reformed Orthodox Rabbi Bill Clinton. Thank you, everybody.
If you've made it this far, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe, and comment. And if you didn't like the video, tell me why in the comments below. And stay tuned for more videos that I make. I have a lot of games trapped on my backlog, and I'm looking forward to exploring them with you all. Thank you.